In the summer of 1947, rancher W.W. Brazel was driving from his ranch into town, Corona, New Mexico, which lay 30 miles away from his ranch. He had his 8-year-old son with him in his vehicle. When they reached about 7 or 8 miles from the ranch, they spotted a large area of bright wreckage made up of rubber strips, tinfoil, and rather tough paper, and some sticks. Brazel was in a hurry, didn't pay much attention to it, and kept on into town. The next day, however, Brazel returned with his daughter to gather up quite a bit of the debris. It's important to note here that his ranch had no phone or radio, and Brazel was unaware of the flying disc phenomena capturing the public at the time. It was the next day, after gathering up the debris, and he was in town, that he apparently heard about flying discs and then wondered if that's what he had recovered. That Monday, he went to town and told the sheriff. He whispered to him confidently, "I may have found a flying disc." The Roswell incident has stayed in popular culture as the main mystery of whether aliens have visited Earth or not. It is my belief it stayed a mystery because of the overwhelming contradictions in the official story and eyewitness testimony. The contradictions go back to even the first article I referenced from the opening. Official military and government reports continue to contradict the official narrative to this day. Now, before we start, I'm not saying one way or the other that aliens crashed in New Mexico, or that the official narrative is right. I will give what thoughts I have about this at the end. I will attempt to point out all the contradictions, while skeptics and officials who claim to debunk this use the evidence as its proof. I will attempt to show that the evidence keeps changing, on both sides. So let's look at the official evidence first. In this same article that was published on Wednesday, July 9th, 1947, almost 1 month from when Brazel first spotted the debris, the story goes on to describe what Roswell Army Airfield Major Jesse A. Marcel and a plainclothes man accompanied Brazel to pick up the remaining pieces of the debris and went back to his ranch, where they attempted to reconstruct it. They, however, couldn't. They tried to make a kite out of it, but couldn't. They tried to find any way to put it back together that would fit. Little note here because I want to put the first contradiction out there. Brazel says he didn't know anything about flying saucers or flying discs, but when driving to town, he saw what he described as wood sticks and tinfoil. Now, this doesn't sound like anything to even stop for, even in 1947. He said he didn't pay much attention to it, but then went back the next day, still unaware of what flying discs were. Sticks and light wood and tinfoil were hardly exotic in 1947. And I don't buy that seeing this in a field would lead anyone to come back in another day to gather it up. So he gathers it up and then goes to town, where somehow, conveniently, he hears for the first time of flying saucers, or flying discs, and goes, "Eureka! This tinfoil and light wood and sticks must be a flying disc." It simply doesn't make any sense. What they described wouldn't make anyone think such a thing. What I could see is this man who wanted to get publicity, claiming this stuff could make him some money or fame, and claiming such a thing. Well, that's possible. But this man was a rancher who had no phone or radio. What would he really be interested in that for? This also doesn't make sense. At this point, after fiddling around with it, Major Marcel brought the debris to his base, and that was the last he heard of it until the story broke that he had found a flying disc, which was the first official response, most likely based off of what was initially reported. Brazel said that he did not see it fall from the sky and did not see it before it was torn up. So he didn't know the size or shape it may have been, but might have been as large as a tabletop. The balloon which held it up, if that was how it worked, must have been about 12 feet long, measuring the distance of the size of the room and the material he had. The rubber was smoky gray in color and scattered over an area of about 200 yards. The debris consisted of, in his words, and the official words, tinfoil paper, tape. There were sticks that made a bundle about 3 feet long and 7 or 8 inches thick, while the rubber made a bundle about 8 inches thick. The entire thing, he said, weighed about 5 pounds. Those are really small aliens. There was no sign of metal in the area, and no sign of any propellers of any kind, and at least one paper fin had been glued onto some of the tinfoil. There were no words on it, but there was some letters on some of the parts. Considerable Scotch tape and some tape with flowers printed on it was used in the construction. No strings nor wire were found, but there was some eyelets that looked like some sort of attachment may have been used. Now, does this describe anything that would warrant the military to get involved in on any level? Would this even be something someone would tell anyone about? Sticks, rubber, tinfoil, and scotch tape? Sounds like a kid's kite or balloon they made in their backyard. Why on earth would this make someone say they may have recovered a flying disc? He then stated that he has recovered weather balloons on his ranch before, and this doesn't resemble anything like them. Another contradiction to the narrative. We haven't even got into anything past the initial incident, and it already sounds fishy to high heaven. None of it makes any sense. What is reported isn't a story. Not now, not in 1947. So, let's travel back one day from this article. One day, just one day. In an article in the Roswell Daily Record, it states, "The intelligence office of the 509th Bombardment Group at Roswell Army Airfield announced at noon today that the field has come into possession of a flying saucer. According to information released by the Department over authority of Major J.A. Marcel, intelligence officer, the disc was recovered on a ranch in the Roswell vicinity after an unidentified rancher had notified Sheriff Geo Wilcox here. They had found the instrument on his premises. Major Marcel and a detail from his department went to the ranch and recovered the disc," it was stated. After the intelligence officer here had inspected the instrument, it was flown to a higher headquarters. The intelligence office stated that no details of the saucer's construction or its appearance has been revealed. This is of course a heck of a lot different than what we were told the next day. And this article had a completely different set of witnesses, who as far as I can tell, get ignored completely by officials. They stated, "Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wilmot apparently were the only persons in Roswell who seen what they thought was a flying disc. They were sitting on their porch at 105 South Penn last Wednesday night at about 10 o'clock when a large glowing object zoomed out of the sky from the southeast, going in a northwesterly direction at a high rate of speed. Wilmot called his wife's attention to it, and both ran down into the yard to watch. It was in sight less than a minute, perhaps 40 or 50 seconds, Wilmot estimated. Wilmot said that it appeared to him to be about 1,500 feet high and going fast. He estimated between 400 and 500 miles per hour. In appearance, it looked oval in shape like two inverted saucers, faced mouth to mouth, or like two old-type wash bowls placed together in the same fashion. The entire body glowed as though light were showing through from the inside, though not like it would inside. So the official story after this was that it was a weather balloon, that even the original witness denied, having recovered weather balloons before. And an official military weather balloon was constructed with scotch tape, with no equipment? Not buying it. Are you? Doesn't mean it was an alien, but obviously the official story doesn't hold up. At this point, though, it seemed to have worked. With a culture seemingly in the throes of flying disc hysteria, this explanation allowed them to move on. Just like that. Seems like another contradiction. The public forgot about it until around 1980. In November of 1979, Major Marcel, yes, the same Major Marcel, gave an interview for a documentary. It had a limited release, but afterwards it sparked up what we recognize today as the Roswell craze. In this interview, Marcel says this regarding the original press conference. Remember a press conference about finding sticks taped with scotch tape and tinfoil? They wanted some comments from me, but I wasn't at liberty to do that, so all I could do is keep my mouth shut. And General Ramey is the one who told the newsman, what it was, and to forget about it. It's nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, we both know differently. Another contradiction. Again, doesn't prove aliens, but suggests this wasn't scotch tape and sticks. And this is where the conspiracy takes hold of the public. Marcel now described the material they found as nothing made of this earth. Brazel's son said the material had super strength not associated with a weather balloon. They claimed the material was placed there, and the photograph that was taken of them was a cover-up. The story keeps changing. At this point, nothing official has changed, but some of the original people involved changed their stories. Was this due to money, getting fame? Who knows? What came next in the story was that suddenly there was alien bodies recovered. Now this escalated the story even more. That there were 4 alien bodies described like the now famous Greys. Apparently, these were photographed and taken back to Area 51. There are officials who claim this to be true. Now, in the 1991 book, UFO Crash at Roswell, they interviewed 100 new witnesses, including those in the military. Here lies a contradiction again. The authors say General Arthur Exon had been directly aware of the debris and bodies. But Exon disputed this, saying his comments had been based exclusively on secondhand rumors. Now, is a general going to make a statement that he based off rumors? I'm not exactly buying that. In this book, there's a new account of the original Brazel recovery. Brazel was described as leading the army to a second crash site on the ranch, at which point the army personnel was supposedly horrified to find civilians already there. Now, there's a contradiction in this too, however, as the 1980s Roswell incident and this book says similar stuff, but the locations and dates were different. It was later in 1997, after the recovery of bodies was now taking hold, that the official narrative changed. Now what was recovered, basically acknowledging these new events, was of a high-altitude secret weather balloon, and the bodies recovered were anthropomorphic dummies, frequently used in the 1950s. Sounds plausible? But wait a minute. Did the government and military just admit that there was a crash, that the material reported wasn't what was found, and that bodies were recovered? Even if it was dummies, their narrative sure shifted a lot. From it was scotch tape to, yeah, there was another crash area, we covered it up, and there was crash dummies we recovered. All real top secret stuff. They couldn't have come up with that narrative to convince the public in 1947? The same public that was fine with believing they recovered not a flying disc but some kite with scotch tape? Again, doesn't make sense. Now from there we went on to see more fantastical things from the story. Alien autopsy, and hundreds of books, videos, etc. All capitalizing on this story. Even this video is doing so. It's just a very convenient debunking technique. People just want to make money and grow their audience, so they'll make up anything. And there's lots that do. Again, it's convenient. When something takes hold and you want to keep it a secret, but Pandora's box is open, flood the area with disinformation. Doesn't seem worthy of keeping files still classified, does it? Critics claim the lack of evidence. But why keep weather balloon technology of 1947 classified straight through to 2022 and beyond? What 1947 technology risks getting into the wrong hands in 2022? Again, this is the point that really doesn't add up. 3 presidents have went on to mention this story, in office or after office. President Obama would say it's not that interesting and brush it off. President Clinton said he reviewed everything on it, but didn't comment what he concluded. And President Trump said, "I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting." Now, of course, Trump is a notorious troll, so take that with a grain of salt, but it's another contradiction. No matter what you believe happened in Roswell in 1947, one must conclude that the story keeps changing. Truth seekers keep trying to get to the bottom of it, government keeps changing their story as they get closer to the truth, as well as keeping the documents classified. Skeptics will keep scoffing and mocking, or taking the narrative as truth, but people will also keep making more money and fame off it, adding to the noise which only makes it more difficult to discover the truth. We will never know the truth until all the documents are declassified, and the military and government reveal what it was that really happened. It would seem that there's still some big secret there for them to keep, which does reveal a lot more than they think. Be a skeptic all you want, but scotch tape and sticks doesn't warrant documents being classified for 70 plus years. Well, now it's time for you to tell me what you think. Let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.